to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, concealed carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the war room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And I am back once again. It is actually, Thursday. It is Thursday afternoon, or almost Thursday afternoon, and I'm jumping in here with an extra episode, I guess. Might be 15 minutes long, might be 20 minutes long, might be 30 minutes long. I don't know yet, but if you follow Patriot Defense on Facebook, and you can find us there, you probably recall seeing that I kind of made a big announcement a few days ago, and I have decided to do Patriot Defense full time. So I think my wife, she hasn't come right out and said it yet, but I think she's given me the summer. And if I can't make this work, then, I'm going to either starve to death or I have to go find another job. So to make Patriot Defense work and to make it grow, I have to obviously have more classes, offer more stuff, a variety of stuff. And to do that, I am actually hosting one class, if not a few more classes. There is a gentleman that called me. He's on the line with me. His name is Jared Karns, and he is with Discipline Defense Solutions. And he has a class. I think he calls it the EFPS class. And we are going to have that on April 24th and April 25th. And there'll be more details on that. I'll post more details on that later on today up on Facebook. I got a flyer that he made that I'll throw up there. But Jared is on the line with us today, and he is going to tell us all about the class, kind of explain what it is. It's a pretty interesting class, and I'll just let him take it away. Are you there, Jared?
I am. Thanks, Todd.
Okay, go ahead and just let them know about yourself, who you are, and what this class is.
So I used to live in the Magic Valley area for several years in Jerome. I'm 43 years old. I'll be 44 this month, and married for 22 years, 3 kids. I'm just like most people, want to take care of my family and take care of my own and be prepared for whatever life throws at us. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Discipline Defense Solutions started, I guess, give you a rundown. I've been studying martial arts, and not from a trophy fighting thing, but an actual combative side of stuff since I was, 13, 14. It actually started with, of all things, medieval style sword fighting with my friends and brothers. But unlike most people, we had steel blades. And so we got cuts and bruises, and, I still have some scars and maybe a chip bone or two from that stuff. And it just developed on. And as I got into later on the family, I worked corrections for a period of time. And, I'm not a gun guy the way a lot of people think. I'm knowledgeable, carry them, but they're not. A lot of people get excited with the gun itself mechanically, and that's not where I am. It's what the gun allows people to do. It's an equalizer. And when I worked corrections, I'd see some of the guys that I had to deal with in lockup on the street, and that started to give me not such a good feeling. I began to get into I would always be able to handle myself physically without a firearm typically, and but my wife, my kids, no. And so that really started my pursuit, and I was 15, 16 years ago. And the reality is there's a lot of bad information in the gun world. If you know what I'm saying, there's just a lot of,
right.
There's a lot of assumptions, there's a lot of gun people who don't have an understanding of actual physical violence, way that
it's gun. Yeah, it's gun centric is what it is. They think they have a gun and they got this magic totem and they're going to be safe.
Yes. And we actually see the criminals that they want to put the gun on you, and even though, despite the fact that the gun is a remote drill, it's really good at making holes without touching things, but they still want to put the gun on you because it is a totem. is a magic wand to produce what they want. And many people on the good side of things use the gun the same way. They can be excellent shooters. They can punch holes in paper all day long. But when it comes to putting that tool to use on an individual, a lot of the assumptions are, 3 yards, 3 rounds, 3 seconds, all that. And those are all from police stop engagements. Is where the bulk of that data comes from. And as we start to look at actual real world data from civilian citizen encounters, it's not that at all. With the rise of the active shooter, how long are the average aisles at your grocery store? 25, 40 yards?
Yeah, something like that. Not very long.
Well, I mean, if you go to Home Depot, some of those are up to 70 yards long.
I guess if you're looking at it that way. So yeah.
Yeah, so you have some fairly long shots that many people don't practice for. The flip side of that is a lot of violent encounters occur because criminals want to get close, they're at bad breath conversation distance. And so most of the shooting that we do for range training is in an ideal scope. It's where we all want it to be. There's actually an ad that's going through Facebook and I think in the Rifleman magazine for the NRA, and it shows a guy with a knife out, and our good guy's got his gun out, and our bad guy's sitting there, and they're perfect, that magical 15 yards apart. And our ads like that and that mindset produces a false paradigm in people's head as to this is what it's going to look like, and that's not the case. It's more the case of someone approaching you and asking for money, and they typically get within conversation distance. And the average person, or even a good shooter, someone who, unless they practice their draw, they're running they've got their clearing the garment down, they can't get the gun out. I've done it myself. They can't get the gun clear without the other person getting on them, and they get stabbed, or they get stabbed and hands on gun. So that for me, as I started getting into this on my own, I came to that realization really fast, that there has to be more to this than just the gun. There are other tools that need to be used in conjunction with the firearm.
It's a toolbox.
Yeah, the gun is a tool. It's not the answer.
Right.
And it is a force equalizer for sure. We've seen a lot of home invasions where 10 or 11-year-old in the last 2 or 3 years have used an AR or something like that to stop 2 or 3 people coming into their home. And so the gun is a great equalizer when there's a force disparity, but it doesn't do the job of thinking. It doesn't do the job of being a tactician. It doesn't do the job of incorporating maybe other disciplines into your self-defense process that we need to do. We can't. If we allow the gun to do the job for us, it's going to fail miserably. And that's really, so the EFPS stands for Entangled Fight Problem Solving. And this is not a new idea to me. I have gone through quite a few classes, Craig Douglas at ShivWorks, ECQC, Cecil Birch. ECQC stands for Extreme Close Quarters Concepts. That's a 3-day class Craig teaches. Cecil Birch teaches immediate action combatives at this company. And so he has immediate action pugilism and immediate action jiu-jitsu. And they are using striking and grappling in conjunction with a weapons-based environment, which is what the real world is. If we approach each other on the street, we can't see what you have, or I can't see what you have. You can't see what I have on me, what I could present, what tools I could bring to bear. And so any unknown encounter is by definition a weapons-based environment, because you have no idea what's going on there, what they have on them. And so, but there's a lot of, I say, machismo and bravado and ego stroking when it comes to this subject, because a lot of men specifically, women don't tend to have this issue, but men specifically overestimate their ability to deal with themselves in a violent encounter. And it becomes imperative, if you're going to do the job of protecting, defending, that you know what your limits are. You know what your failures are. You know where you come off the rails. You know what you can do well. Because only then can you operate in the world as it is and not how you want it to be. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's that way with what you're talking about, and it's that way in shooting too. Just sometimes, and I'm going to lean to the shooting side because I mean that's who I am, right? But I mean, I see people come in and they think they can do this, they think they can do that just because they have a firearm. But if they haven't trained, if they haven't figured out where they're going to fail out and fix it, then they don't ever improve. And I would imagine people come into this thinking, well, I'm a big guy, I can handle this, I can do that. But if they've never tried it, they don't really know.
Well, and the biggest issues I run into are psychological failures. I just taught a class this last weekend, and I had a fit, strong young man. So I use that term, sound like I'm in my 80s, but he, he's 24, 23, 24, right in there. Played hockey, had some scraps on the ice and stuff, and, gave as good as he got, and, didn't have a problem. But when we came to a simulated violent encounter, strapping a training gun on and having some protective gear, and he'd worked with all these other students today, he knew he got green around the gills, and it was very difficult for him. And that was purely in the mind. I've had students fail to draw their gun when they were clear to. It was legally and ethically in the scenario what was occurring. They could have drawn their gun and they forgot it was there.
Right.
And the goal of the class is to give students the physical skills to deal with an in-close violent encounter, to create the window to get their gun out in an appropriate manner so that it's not taken from them and used against them. And at the same time, find where their own failures are. We pressure test that at the end of the day. And people come out of their 31-minute pressure test at the end of the day, and their eyes are bugged and they're got an adrenaline rush, and we discuss that and figure out what went well, what went wrong, and what they need to work on and what they can do better, and then possibly what they're skilled at that they didn't know. So it's a really good way of figuring out who we are in that situation. Right. And we discuss a lot of the legality of lethality, who can go to lethal force under what circumstances, and that's a sliding scale. It has a lot of variables that change, based upon the individual. If I'm myself, I'm behind a lot of people on it due to training and size and strength and ability. But if I'm running the flu, if I have a fever and I'm out grabbing some medicine and I'm out with one of my kids and my wife, then I can go to lethal force faster. We have to understand that and be able to articulate why we do what we do. So the discipline portion of the discipline defense is, there's a lot of, I don't want to use the term cowboys and offend people, but there's a lot of that attitude, recklessness in this, I'll just pull my gun and shoot him, or, I carry two guns in case one jams, or, stuff like that
right.
doesn't have a lot of experience or critical thought to it. And as armed citizens, we can't afford to be anything but professional, to be frank. Both from a legal standpoint, and I believe morally and ethically, we have to attain a level of professionalism in our demeanor and our understanding and our use of deadly force, because that's what we're saying what we're ready to use and capable of using.
Right.
And so that's a disciplined individual doesn't make an emotional shot. They stop when the threat stops being a threat. Mm-hmm. And when they have the situation under control. So there's things of that nature that they make the decisions that need to be made. If they're difficult, if you're doing medical, for instance, I carry a medical kit on me, an ankle kit, and if there's a shooting that goes on and one of my family's hit, or a couple of my family, who do I help first?
Right. It's a choice. It's a choice you got to make.
It's a choice you got to make, and it can be based upon your religious beliefs, the number of things, but there are things that have to be thought about ahead of time. If we have a situation and it's my wife and a friend of mine and it's multiple attackers and they both are wounded, who do I help first? Well, emotionally, I'd want to help my wife, but to deal with the threat, I might have to help my buddy who's a better aid in that moment.
Yeah, who can help you deal with that threat if you get him up and rolling again.
Yep. And so those are hard decisions that we have to talk about. And, that requires non-emotional critical thinking, being a professional. There's a lot of things about getting involved with third-party encounters. We have to look at what our mission is. So there's a number of things that go into this class. That's why it's as extensive as it is. And so I want potential students, compared to many of their knowledge base, I don't present myself as a destination. This information, I will point you to who I've trained with, and go further down the road. But the problem is, a lot of those instructors are national level. It takes a year to get into them. It's not cheap, and the information is important enough that many people need it.
Right.
And so I have an affinity for empty hand skills and applying, for fighting and for applying that to the gun. And so the class is really, this is not a shooting class. We're going to do a little bit of shooting, but it is about learning to fight with the gun with another human being and stopping them from presenting their weapon, maintaining retention over your own, and all that's going to be done through it's a crawl, run, walk procedure, but through some, technique drills that are consensual, non-competitive, and they slowly begin to amp up the pressure. So eventually, everyone is working to stop you from doing what you need to do, and you're working to get it done against their will. And that's really the only way we can learn to do this stuff.
No.
And get some realistic interaction.
No, I agree, and I'm really excited to have you over here. So, without giving away any, class secrets, I guess. So, the class is 2 days, or it says it's 13 hours. So we're going to do a Friday evening, 6 to 9 p.m., and the next day is going to be a Saturday, and we're going to do 8 to 6. Would you it doesn't have to be real in detail. Can you just give a quick rundown of what someone expects if they want to sign up for this class? Just because it's kind of a new class, and I'm sure people are going to have plenty of questions. As I'm sure I'm going to get nailed with questions all afternoon. What are we going to do? What am I going to do in this class?
Yeah.
Quick rundown would be great.
So Friday night is, we start with once again, based upon real life, violent criminal actors. There's always an encroachment. They have to get close. They need to get close to it. If someone pulls a handgun on you at 65 yards away, that's alarming, but it's not super, super threatening. Does that make sense?
Right. No, they're not in your personal space yet. So.
Yeah, or a knife. If someone 50 yards away says, "I'm going to cut you," and pulls a blade, or you're like, "Well, I got time to get in my car and drive off. I have time to get to where other people are." So they obviously don't do it that way. They have to encroach and get to the point where they can personally threaten you. And so what we work on first is halting the encroachment. The ultimate state is to have a violent criminal actor decide to go somewhere else. They decide there's an easier target somewhere else, and they go that way because they're predators. Predators do not desire to get into a fight and get injured. They desire to have a victim.
Right.
And so we start with halting the encroachment. So part of that is paying attention, being aware of what's going on, and in a very specific way. So we talk about the violent criminal victim selection process, and then halting the encroachment. We halt the encroachment using verbals, body positioning tactics that maintain begin to establish and then maintain a dominant physical position. So our violent criminal actors constantly having to reassess and align themselves and begin to take control of the situation from them back to us. We will work on some mental drills that we do not get involved into whatever they're using to get close to us. Whether that, say, my car is broken down around the corner and my kid's in the car, or hey, there was just a kid that was hit by a car on his bike. Can I use your cell phone? Do you have your cell phone on you? And then they're looking to see what's in your, where you keep that, how you move. There are some nonverbal pre-fight indicators that violent criminal actors give. They're psychological based, and they're pretty universal. And as people learn them, they'll begin to be like, oh, I had this guy do that to me when, last year when I got approached at Winco or whatever. And so people begin to see them. And so we work on that. I prefer that class to be in the evening with some failing light, because that's when a lot of this stuff happens. And so we work on, students will approach another student, start a talk track, and they'll throw those pre-fight indicators out. And while you're trying to disengage from their talk track, keep them at a distance, being ready for a rapid encroachment, rapid assault, you're watching for those pre-fight indicators and calling them out. And so we get some training that way, so we can see them and pick them out under the pretty similar circumstances that will be presented in real life. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
And so that'll be Friday night. We also do some body positioning drills. If you're bald, I recommend bringing a knit cap for that. We're going to be, discovering the miracles of leverage, of level change, getting our center of gravity below our opponent. And it seems really to people, I guess if you're not familiar with wrestling or jiu-jitsu or some grappling arts, it seems kind of weird, but it becomes very relevant the next day.
Hey, I'm going to don my Speedo and cover myself in bacon grease.
See, that's a deterrent. There's actually a YouTube video where series where a guy has like a rip-off tracksuit, and he's got like he's speedoed and boiled up, and he'll just run around. Hey, you want to fight? And he rips it off, and he's just this skinny, tall, lanky, greased down dude, pale white dude in a Speedo, and no one wants to fight him.
Hey, whatever works for you.
Exactly. Psychological tools work. And this class ultimately it's about what's going on in your mind. How much fight do you have in you? What is it that you're willing to fight for? What is it that you're willing to go to war for? And it becomes when you begin to really look at it, that gets real small real fast. And
right.
We get past the bravado, we get past the BS, and we can become better protectors and defenders. So that's Friday night, and we also do some light demonstrations. People hear about lights and lumens and things, and it's one thing to see what Surefire or Streamlight or Olight or whatever the company says. It's another to be able to handle and see the light output and realize, that would incapacitate someone if they went from dark to that. So that's Friday night, and then Saturday we start with the grappling aspect of it. We talk about striking. We talk about why striking isn't a great idea for most people. Many people don't do it. If you watch, I was just watching an old UFC fight. Well, not that old, but it's Khabib and Conor McGregor. Both those guys are top level professionals in what they do. And you watch the number of punches they throw that they miss. And they know they're not in a fight to the death. They know they're not. It's a violent encounter, but it's not a life-threatening violent encounter. There are rules. That's not what we have. And so the stress level, they're inoculated to that physical combat, but the average person's not. And then they're going to try to throw punches, and they're going to be hitting with their dominant hand when they need to go to their gun potentially afterwards. And what tends to happen to most people when they punch and they're not used to it, they break something. And so now you're in a situation where you maybe thrown a couple, hit the guy, and you broke your hand on the crown of his head, and now you got to go for your gun. And so there's better tools to use than that. Not that it doesn't have its place, but so we start with trying to get the underhook, get the wrist tie, trying to stop them from presenting their own tools. We want to win the fight that we're in, so we can have the fight that we want. And ideally, our ideal situation, if we have to be in a violent encounter, is our weapon out and putting rounds in the upper thoracic or in the T-zone in the skull. That's the PC, the computer, and the pumps. We want to disrupt the function of those. And so the ultimate goal of the class is to teach you to handle the entanglement, process through it, establish a dominant position, and get out of it to get our superior weapons into play. And so, but that doesn't happen because we want it to. It happens based upon training.
Right. So, even, there is a small shooting portion of the class, and it's going to require some mags and a holster, which I've stated on this information. I'll post here in a little while later on this afternoon. And it says it's only right around about 120 to about 200 rounds of ammo. So that's
light. Actually, it's probably 20 to 40 rounds.
Okay.
So some people want to shoot a little more. I typically do a grip module. But it's not something I want to spend a lot of time.
Sure.
If people are unsatisfactory because you're only shooting 1 or 2 rounds from a given position of the weapon, it becomes real diagnostic how you're shooting when it's cold. Does that make sense?
Right. No, I got it.
And it's that full extension where you're shooting cold. Well, I did good, or that's not what I want. I don't normally shoot that way. But that's, 3 magazines in when I've warmed up.
Right.
That you're not going to get a notice that, hey, I'm going to assault you on Tuesday, be ready. It's going to happen when it happens. And by definition, those shots are going to be cold. And so that becomes an opportunity. People are like, yeah, I kind of suck at that. I need to get into a shooting class. And so, but yeah, the bulk of the class is going to be, it is, I say it's physically intensive. If you're used to a shooting class, where if you've done shoot house classes or things like that, where you're moving and going, it's on that level. You are going to be putting hands on other students. You're going to have, and we'll work through the comfort area and all that. But there is going to be physical contact, and so it's just the way it is. Like I can't teach you to fight without
touching people.
Without touching people. And so, but typically what happens is everyone's very respectful. I maintain a respectful professional attitude. But it's not a place for sophomore, middle school crap.
Right.
So I do expect that from students. So male and female, I want everyone to be professional, civil.
Sure, and
be a good partner as well.
Right.
If I, so I haven't had anyone get hurt. I haven't had anyone get injured or anything of that nature. So we do have a medical session where we set up a driver and here's the first aid kit and, where's the hospital. But I've never had to do that because everyone gets, we have a good time, but when they're in it, they're serious and they're working to get good reps so that they are ingraining those skills. But what we're trying to do is that people throw around the term muscle memory, and it's false. Technically, it's the neural pathways that when you start to learn a new skill, those neural pathways are kind of like putting in a new road. It's very rough. They're bumpy. You really have to go slow. But when you go from a dirt road to a gravel road, you can go a little faster, and you go from gravel to paved, you can go a lot faster. And the more you do something, the more ingrained that neural pathway gets. It's called myelinization. It becomes faster and more intuitive. You don't have to think about it as much. And so that's the goal of firearms training, is to get people going from, unconscious incompetence. They don't know what they don't know, to conscious incompetence. Okay, I'm an idiot on this stuff and I don't know this and I need to learn it. and then conscious competence. If I think about it, I can do it. And then finally, unconscious competence, where I don't have to think about my weapon handling. I don't have to think about my sight picture. I don't have to think about pie in that corner. I can process what's going on in front of me and do what I need to do. And so all my mind is focused on solving the problem in front of me and not gun handling. That's when you look at SWAT teams, JSOC guys, when they roll through a building, when they're making decisions at what seem to be light speed, it's because their brain is focused on that, and all the weapon handling stuff is already automatic.
Right.
So we begin to work on, we want to get the average citizen to begin that process with making decisions. Am I going to engage with this individual? Can I diffuse this? Okay, I have to. And so they don't have to think about what their body's doing. They have to pay attention to what the other person's doing. And so that we begin to build those neural pathways. So, and that requires repetition.
So let me throw this out there. So I've got a motto I kind of base my business on, and if you've read up on anything, you've probably seen it out there maybe, is practical, not tactical. So this, after discussing this with you for numerous phone calls, I mean, we've been talking for at least a month. This is practical. This is something that people need to know. So what kind of person should think about taking this class? I mean, you go over it, it's really in depth, and that's great, and it should be. But I mean, is it just for people who are like really, really, really into this, and the football player and the guy that lifts weights? Or, I mean, what kind of people take these classes? What kind of people can sign up for this class and know that they're still going to gain something from it? Maybe they're afraid of getting hurt because they're a little older, or, I mean, you tell me.
So my oldest student was 67. He was missing 3 fingers on one hand. And he did a fantastic job. He learned he learned some lessons about himself during the day, about who he was that time. And that he got some humility, and that actually made him more dangerous. It made him more capable. And he knew when and where he needed to deploy the firearm. And it wasn't in the middle of a clinch. And also learning about the legality of lethality. He knew he was legal to go to the gun, not actually put rounds out, but have it ready faster than someone else. And so made him more dangerous and more capable, and able to keep himself and his wife safer, and his grandkids if they were with him. I have another student and lives in the Twin Falls area. He had cerebral cancer as a child, brain cancer, and it stunted his growth. And we found out that if he gets hit in the head medically, he is in serious trouble. So he learned to be able to survive that initial onslaught, that assault, ambush, so to speak. We also learned he was incredibly dangerous if he used his diminutive size appropriately. And so it's a class for everybody. I've had a pregnant mother go through, and we obviously, there's things she didn't do, but there were quite a bit she did. And it's not for, I'm a big guy, but I grew up from from 2nd to 8th grade. I didn't severely bullied. I could go to the bathroom without getting into a fight, and it taught me. I'm not joking. That's real. So my school during that time was highly unpleasant, and it just made me determined to never be a victim. And it inculcated in me a desire to help others not be a victim. And that's what, I'll be honest, you want to find something that makes me furious, it is for me to see something like that happening. And so this is a real personal thing for me to teach everyone. This is for everybody. If you have a 12 or 13-year-old child, and a bulk of what we talk about, you don't have to carry a gun to use. We're going to be trying to get to our assaulters back and then shove them off, and then we can use our Nike Jitsu and run away and get some space and get some distance. That is perfectly usable in a school violent encounter environment. So it really is for everybody. If you're older and think, well, I can't do that, well, you're actually in a target demographic. And this is not strength-based. That doesn't mean strength isn't a help. in any endeavor, but these techniques are not strength based. They're based upon physics. They're based upon mechanical leverage and advantage, and not muscle based. And so it becomes really interesting when you see, a 135-pound woman, tangled up with another student. He's maybe a 200-pound man, and she does an arm drag on him and then takes his back, and all of a sudden she's on him and owns him, and training, and she's got a gun out, and he knows, well, I just got my kidneys lit up. And so that's all our students to go through it. It's pretty revelatory for them. They realize what they're capable of. They realize what they can do. And that's what the class is about, is finding what you can do. So that's, it's a real enabler. And I think everyone who's gone through has come with a greater level of confidence in who they are and what they're capable of. And they take that, and it helps them on their own self-defense journey.
Oh, fantastic.
So I apologize.
Oh no, you're finish up your thought there.
It's for everybody. And so it's, please don't, I want your potential students to, I want us to have a good class, a good turnout, but more importantly than any of that is I want good people to be safe. There's enough people willing to harm and hurt others, to take advantage, to manipulate, to, from theft, robberies, rapes, murders, to the rise of human trafficking. There's enough threats out there from bad people, and they've got experience in it. They do it. They do it professionally. They do it personally. Good people tend to not have experience in violence. That's part of what they don't just go around enforcing their will on others. And so they're behind the curve when it does show up on their front doorstep. And they need practice. They need training. And that's what this is about. The only way you're going to stop crime is if criminals start losing. And it becomes both unprofitable and life-threatening for them to engage in such activity. And that is only going to happen with an armed, capable, dangerous, but professional citizenry. And we used to be that way. And we were civil, we were polite, but there was a line. And, if you threatened a family or a group of people, there was a real good chance that they were going to handle it. I mean, you look at the James Younger gang back in the 1840s. They were in Missouri. I think it was Missouri. They were a local favorite, but one of the new members they brought on ended up shooting someone, a citizen of this town. And the next time they came through, the town wiped them out. And we used to be men and women like that, and I believe we can do it again. And that's the only way we'll actually be safe. It's not a dig on law enforcement, but they're there to clean up the mess afterwards.
I agree.
And so we have to take that responsibility back for ourselves. And this is one of the ways that people do that. Yes, get a gun, learn to use it, and then learn to use it in a violent encounter.
Fantastic. So, I appreciate your thoughts on this class. I appreciate you getting a hold of me. I'm actually looking forward to this a bunch. And for those who are interested, I will have the dates and stuff. I'll post them up on Facebook probably here in a few hours. Kind of stretch this thing out and get some mileage out of it,
Yeah. Well, it's a real quick rundown. I would recommend I'm older, I got arthritis in my knees. And, so I start when I teach a class, I start the morning with some ibuprofen breakfast. That's, just think about that. It is going to be a good workout for you. If you've been missing that, you'll be, my last students are calling, my hands are sore. I'm like, yeah, well, you're grabbing hold of people and pulling on them all day. So there's a lot of forearm work there and things like that. And, but the physical aspects are negligible when it comes to building a thinking multidisciplinary tactician who can take care of their people, their family. And that's the mind process that begins to happen in the mind. People begin to find what they're willing to fight for. And then that drives them to learn more and to do more and to become more than they were before. And that makes them less of a victim. So, but yeah, I recommend, sweatshirt and, maybe some ibuprofen, something like that. And I've set a mouthpiece on there. If you want to bring one, the Evolution, you don't have to do it, but it's really where everything kind of comes together. And, that's a choice there. I haven't had anyone need it. I've run through some really, really hard physical classes without a mouthpiece, but that's up to you. It's something you want.
If you have it, it's an option if you need it. So
yeah, better to have it than, have it and not need it than need it and have it and not have it. So anyway, so that's, I can go on forever on this, but without taking up all your time, that's what this class is about. And I hope to see a good diversity of students and get some information out there that's really necessary but hard to access, without getting into it on a fairly high level.
Right.
Some instructors, instructor Craig Douglas, I went through with him and have contacted him on, text and phone book, phone and things like that. And when he left class at Coeur d'Alene, this has been a week in Fort Benning teaching Green Berets there. And so this material, its genesis and comes from professionals dealing with these same problems. They deal with them more frequently because, they're a narcotics officer buying or selling drugs in a car, and it's a gunfight or a knife fight in a car or in a very tight and closed space. But this information comes out. That's kind of its genesis.
Right.
Is these people that were using more traditional martial arts methods and they weren't working. And so over a 10-year process, and I don't want to throw a bunch of names out people, but
no, it's been tried and tested and proven, and so it's got a history, and it's good information.
Yeah, it's good information. So you can go for me and then go into Mr. Douglas's class or Cecil Birch or Paul Sharp or some of those guys that are Larry Lindemann, and you would have a good foundation and be able to progress further in your abilities and your knowledge. And so anyway, and at the end of I have a program instruction that all students get, and there's a list of instructors I follow who their information it's accurate. They're students. They don't present themselves as subject matter experts. They're constantly learning, and they're humble about their endeavors. And so they've never shut off that avenue of learning, and they're always testing their own assumptions. And that's where we begin to really have a true learning experience.
No,
so, anyway.
I agree. So one real quick though, you got on here. So you went over the mouthpiece. Is a cup recommended?
I put it in there, but I demo things with everybody. When something fails, I'll tangle up. So I end up doing everything 3 or 4 times more than the students do.
Uh-huh.
And I've never needed it. But it's once again, when you do the evolution, things can happen.
Right.
Knees and elbows flying, and people we're moving around fast. So no one intentionally is trying to hurt somebody, but things happen by accident. So it's just kind of at your discretion.
Well, that blows my idea of a line of Patriot Defense cups. Well, you could still do it, I could.
You would have to wear it on the outside though, so it'd be more of a cod piece than a cup.
There you go. Patriot Defense cod piece. I'm going to make all kinds of money off this. So, well, hey, I tell you what, I appreciate you coming on here and telling us about this. I am going to wrap this up, but if you could just stay on the line, I want to talk to you for just a second when we get done here. If you can do that, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is a podcast midweek. It discusses this EFPS class. Thank you, Jared, for coming on and talking about this. And I will post up more information on the Facebook page. You guys have my number. You'll have Jared's number on there. I'm sure he's open to calls. You definitely know I am. It's in my pocket all the time. Call me, text me, whatever you need. Go ahead and post this when I get this up. You can post this on your social media pages. Share it with everyone. And don't worry, this is not the only podcast this week. We will be getting back together Saturday evening with the rest of the guys and doing another one. But I appreciate everyone taking the time and joining me today. It looks like lots of people logged on during the day, whether or not you're hiding in the back room at work or we hit lunch break, I'm not sure. But hey, I appreciate your sacrifice. So if you got any questions, let me know. Look for more information. Until then, I will talk to you guys later.